that moment on a Monday morning when you reach for your phone just to check the time, and suddenly you're staring at 15 notifications, 3 calendar alerts, and a message from your boss sent at 11 the previous night, and your day hasn't even started yet?
Oh, I know that feeling. It's like the week ambushes you before your first cup of coffee. And the worst part is you lie there thinking, maybe if I don't move, Monday won't happen.
And yet Monday always happens, every single time. So today we're talking about something nearly every person deals with, handling a busy schedule. Not just surviving it, but managing it in a way that keeps you focused, sane, and maybe even happy along the way.
Which honestly sounds almost radical, because I think a lot of people have simply accepted being overwhelmed as the default state of adult life. Like, oh, you're stressed and always running behind? Welcome to adulthood. And I really want to push back on that today.
I want to push back on it too. Before we jump into strategies, though, it's worth asking, why are so many people struggling with this in the first place? Why does the modern schedule feel so unmanageable for so many people?
I think there are a few layers. One big one is that technology has made us permanently reachable. There was a time when you left the office and work stayed there. Now it follows you everywhere. Phone, laptop, smartwatch. The boundaries have dissolved. Dissolved meaning they've slowly disappeared over time.
That's a great point. And there's also a cultural element. This idea that being busy is something to be proud of. If someone asks how you are and you say, I'm relaxed, plenty of free time, people look at you suspiciously. But say, I'm completely swamped, and suddenly you seem important and hardworking.
Swamped. Good word. It means totally overwhelmed with tasks, like you're flooded with responsibilities. And you're right, there's a social status attached to busyness that is genuinely damaging. It makes people wear their exhaustion like a badge of honor, rather than recognizing it as a warning sign.
And the dangerous thing is, it becomes hard to recognize when things have gone too far. If being stressed and overloaded is considered normal, when do you actually stop and say, this isn't sustainable? Sustainable meaning something you can keep doing long-term without causing serious harm to yourself.
Often, people don't stop until something forces them to. A health scare, a relationship breaking down, or a complete burnout. Burnout is worth defining properly because people use it loosely. It's a state of chronic stress leading to deep exhaustion, emotional detachment from your work, and a feeling that nothing you do makes any difference.
That definition really matters, because burnout isn't just feeling tired on a Friday. It's far more serious and much harder to recover from. And it builds so gradually that most people don't notice until they're already deep inside it.
It creeps up on you. And that slow nature is exactly what makes prevention so much more valuable than recovery. If you build solid habits around managing your time and energy before things get critical, you're in a much stronger position than someone trying to rebuild after completely falling apart.
So where does good schedule management actually begin? Because I find a lot of people jump straight to apps and elaborate systems and miss something far more fundamental underneath all of that.
I think it starts with clarity. Being genuinely clear about what matters most to you. Very practically, not in a motivational poster way. If you don't know your real priorities, you have no basis for deciding how to spend your time. Everything feels equally important, and you end up just reacting to whatever lands in front of you.
Reactive, meaning just responding to whatever shows up, rather than working deliberately toward your own goals. And so many people live in that reactive mode without fully realizing it. The day just sort of happens to them, rather than being something they actively shape.
Right. And the opposite of reactive is proactive, taking intentional action in advance rather than simply responding to situations as they arise. Being proactive with your schedule means starting each week or even each day with deliberate thought about what you actually want to accomplish, not just what appears in your inbox.
In practice, what does that look like for someone who genuinely doesn't know where to begin? Because I think a lot of people sit down to plan and immediately feel even more overwhelmed by everything they need to write down.
So my starting point is always just 3 things, not a list of 20 tasks, just 3. Ask yourself honestly, if today ends and I've only accomplished 3 things, which 3 would make me feel the day was truly worthwhile? Write those down first. Everything else becomes secondary to that.
I love that because it sounds almost too simple. But I think simplicity is genuinely the point. Most productivity systems fail, not because they're bad ideas, but because they're too complicated to maintain when life gets hectic. Hectic meaning extremely busy and fast-paced, almost chaotic in feeling.
Exactly. Complexity kills consistency. Consistency meaning doing something regularly over time. A simple system you actually use beats a beautifully designed system you abandon by Wednesday. I've tested this personally more times than I'd like to admit.
Okay, so we have our 3 priorities. What comes next in terms of structuring actual time to make sure those things get done, rather than just sitting on a list feeling guilty?
This is where time blocking becomes really useful. And I know it sounds corporate and intimidating, but it's actually quite flexible. Time blocking simply means assigning specific chunks of your day to specific tasks, rather than working from a loose to-do list you dip in and out of randomly throughout the day.
The difference between having a list and time blocking is essentially the difference between knowing what you need to do and deciding when you're going to do it. And that second part, the when, is honestly where most people drop the ball.
Drop the ball meaning fail to follow through properly. Knowing you need to write a report is one thing. Saying, I am writing that report between 9 and 11 Tuesday morning, phone on silent, email closed, that is a completely different level of commitment to actually getting it finished.
It makes the task feel more real, doesn't it? Like it has an actual home in your day, rather than floating around making you feel vaguely guilty every time you scroll past it on your list.
That guilt is real, and there's a psychological explanation. It's called the Zeigarnik effect, the tendency of our brains to keep flagging incomplete tasks far more persistently than completed ones. So that report you haven't started, your brain keeps nudging you about it, even when you're trying to focus on something completely different.
Which means finishing things, or at least making a clear plan for when you'll finish them, frees up genuine mental energy. It's not just about the task itself, it's about getting that weight out of your head.
Exactly. Writing tasks down in a system you actually trust signals to your brain, I've captured this, you can let it go now. When your brain trusts the system, it stops trying to hold everything simultaneously, and you can actually focus on what's right in front of you.
I want to talk about something that trips a lot of people up, the difference between urgent and important tasks. Because people regularly treat these as the same thing, when they're really quite different from each other.
Such a crucial distinction. Urgent means something needs your attention right now, pressing deadline, someone waiting on you. Important means it significantly contributes to your goals or long-term well-being. The trap most people fall into is spending all their time on urgent things, while the truly important things keep getting quietly pushed aside.
Can you give a real-world example? Because I find it's one of those concepts that clicks much more clearly when you can actually see it playing out in a recognizable situation.
Sure. Imagine you want to develop a valuable skill, learning a language, improving your writing. That's genuinely important for your future. But every day, emails arrive, meetings get scheduled, small urgent requests land on your desk. And the skill development, the truly important thing, keeps getting pushed to someday. And someday, as they say, is not a day of the week.
Someday is not a day of the week. I love that. And this is precisely where intentional scheduling becomes powerful. If you don't actively protect time for important things, the urgent things will always fill every available space. Always, without exception.
Always. Your calendar behaves like nature. It abhors a vacuum, meaning empty space tends to get filled. If there's an open slot, something urgent will find its way in. So you have to guard time for important work deliberately and in advance, almost like you're actively defending it from being taken.
Let's talk about something that makes many people uncomfortable, the skill of saying no. Because all the prioritization in the world doesn't help much if you keep agreeing to take on more than you can realistically handle at any given time.
Saying no is honestly one of the most important and underrated productivity skills there is, and also one of the hardest to develop, especially for naturally helpful people, or those in environments where being a team player feels tied directly to their job security. The pressure to just say yes can feel genuinely enormous.
And there's a useful reframe here. Instead of thinking of saying no as letting someone down, think of it as being honest about your capacity. Capacity meaning how much you can genuinely handle right now. When you say yes to something you don't have space for,
You're setting both yourself and the other person up for disappointment later.
A reluctant yes that produces rushed, half-finished work is worse for everyone than an honest no delivered up front. And you can say no in ways that preserve the relationship. Something like, I really want to help, and I can't give this the attention it deserves right now. Could we revisit next week? That's a no, but a gracious one.
Gracious, meaning polite and considerate, even within a difficult situation. And delivering a gracious no is its own skill. It takes practice, confidence, and comfort with the brief awkwardness that sometimes follows immediately after.
Because that discomfort is real. There's often a moment of anxiety after you decline something. Did I offend them? Will they think less of me? But in my experience, people respect a clear, honest, politely delivered no far more than an enthusiastic yes followed by delays and a poor result.
I want to shift to something I feel strongly about, energy management, because we constantly talk about time management, but time and energy aren't the same thing. You can absolutely have the time to do something and completely lack the energy to do it well.
This is so underappreciated. You have a fixed number of hours in the day. Everyone gets 24, but your energy fluctuates throughout that time. Fluctuating meaning it rises and falls in natural cycles. Most people have periods of high mental sharpness and periods where their brain simply does not want to cooperate.
And the smart approach is matching your tasks to your energy levels. Doing your most cognitively demanding work, deep thinking, complex problem solving, creative work, during windows when your mind is genuinely sharpest, rather than just working through things in whatever order they appear.
For most people, that peak window is morning, but not everyone. Some people do their clearest thinking in the afternoon or evening. The critical thing is knowing yourself, knowing when you're sharp, when you're naturally sluggish, and designing your day around that reality, rather than constantly fighting against it.
This connects to something surprisingly overlooked in productivity conversations: taking real breaks. Not switching from one screen to another and calling it rest, but actually stepping away and allowing your mind to genuinely recover between periods of intense focus.
There's solid research supporting this. The brain isn't built for sustained, unbroken concentration across many hours. It works in natural cycles, high focus followed by inevitable dips. If you push through those dips and ignore them, the quality of your work declines significantly, even if the volume of output stays roughly the same.
Quality over quantity, a phrase that sounds obvious but is genuinely hard to honor when you're under real pressure, and your instinct is just to keep going, keep producing, keep moving forward no matter what the cost.
And that pressure to keep grinding, working harder and longer as the answer to everything, is something hustle culture has really amplified. Amplified meaning made dramatically louder and more widespread. The messaging is that people who succeed sacrifice the most sleep, the most rest, the most personal time. And that story is not only unsustainable, it's frequently just wrong.
Because research is clear that beyond a certain threshold, additional working hours produce diminishing returns. Diminishing returns meaning you keep putting in more effort, but get less and less actual benefit from each additional hour you spend working.
Studies show that someone working 55 or 60 hours a week often produces no more, sometimes genuinely less, than someone working 40 focused hours. The extra hours create fatigue, reduce creativity, increase mistakes. You're burning fuel without actually going anywhere meaningful.
And the personal cost is enormous, because those extra hours come from somewhere, from sleep, from relationships, from exercise, from the activities that restore and genuinely recharge you as a whole person.
And when those things erode, slowly wear away over time, you don't always notice immediately. You might feel okay for weeks, but gradually your resilience drops, your mood becomes harder to manage, relationships feel strained, and you start wondering why everything feels so difficult even though you're working so incredibly hard.
Which leads many people to work even harder, believing that's the solution, when what they actually need is almost the opposite: genuine rest, honest reflection, and a serious look at whether how they're spending time truly reflects what they actually value.
It's one of the great ironies of overwork. The cure feels counterintuitive, meaning it goes against your instincts completely. Your instincts say work more, do more, fix more.
But what genuinely helps is slowing down, stepping back, and becoming more strategic about the effort you put in each day.
Let's talk about routine, because people who handle busy schedules most gracefully tend to have strong personal routines, especially around mornings and evenings. Have you found that to be true from your own experience?
Absolutely. Routines are powerful because they reduce decision fatigue. Decision fatigue is the idea that every decision you make, no matter how small, uses a little mental energy. If you're making dozens of micro-decisions from the moment you wake up, you're depleting that energy before touching your real work.
So a strong morning routine essentially automates the start of your day. You're not deciding whether to exercise, what to eat, when to check your phone. Those decisions are already made. You follow the familiar sequence and arrive at your actual work with your mental energy largely intact.
Intact meaning whole and not yet used up. And the routine removes friction from the beginning of your day. Friction meaning resistance that slows things down and makes starting harder. When your morning flows naturally, you're not fighting yourself to begin. You simply move through the sequence and arrive ready to focus.
The same logic applies to how you end your day. How you close one day directly affects how you open the next. If you're working right until you fall asleep, your brain stays in active work mode. Your sleep suffers, and you wake up already feeling behind before anything has happened.
There's a practice I find really valuable called a shutdown ritual. A short, consistent sequence at the end of every workday that signals to your brain that work is genuinely finished. It might involve reviewing what you accomplished, noting loose ends, and setting tomorrow's priorities. It creates a clear, definitive boundary between work and rest.
And boundaries more broadly are central to managing a busy schedule well. Boundaries around when you check messages, which tasks you take on, and how available you make yourself to other people's demands on your limited time and energy each day.
Boundaries are essentially the agreements you make, with yourself and others, about what you will and won't do. Setting clear, consistent boundaries is one of the most effective things you can do for your schedule, but it requires knowing your actual limits and being willing to communicate them directly without excessive apology.
Communicating limits can feel uncomfortable, especially in environments where being always available is the unspoken expectation. But there's a way to frame it that sounds professional and confident, rather than defensive or unhelpful.
Framing really matters. Instead of, "I don't check emails in the evening," you say, "I work most effectively with focused morning hours. I usually respond to messages early afternoon." Same boundary, but one sounds like a thoughtful professional choice rather than a flat refusal. People respond very differently to those two framings.
That's a genuinely nuanced communication skill. Nuanced meaning subtle and carefully considered. And confidence in setting boundaries tends to grow from seeing nil results. Noticing that your work actually improves when you protect your time and energy properly and consistently.
The results reinforce the behavior. Reinforce meaning strengthen and encourage you to continue. Once you see that protecting your focus genuinely leads to better output and less stress, you become far more committed to maintaining the habits that created that improvement in the first place.
I want to touch on the mental load, because there's the visible part of a busy schedule, meetings, deadlines, tasks, and then there's the invisible part, which is everything you're actively holding in your head and tracking at any given moment throughout the day.
The mental load is enormous and rarely acknowledged properly. You might not be visibly doing anything in a particular moment, but your mind is running constantly, tracking things, anticipating problems, trying to remember what you mustn't forget. That invisible cognitive work is genuinely and deeply exhausting.
And one of the most practical solutions is what productivity writers call a brain dump, which is exactly what it sounds like. You sit down, set a timer, and write down absolutely everything currently living in your head. Every task, worry, idea, thing you're trying not to forget. All of it out onto paper.
The relief afterward is almost physical. You can feel your shoulders drop. Because when everything lives inside your head, it all feels equally urgent. But when it's visible on paper, you can make calm, rational decisions about what actually matters right now and what can genuinely wait until later.
Which is why external systems, a notebook, an app, a planner, are so valuable. Not because the tool is magic, but because it extends your working memory.
working memory being the limited mental space used to actively hold and process information. Offloading things into a reliable system frees that space for actual thinking.
And the key word is reliable. The system only works if you genuinely trust it. If your brain knows that something written down won't be lost and will be revisited, it lets go willingly. But if you've ignored previous systems, your brain learns not to trust them and keeps holding everything itself anyway.
Which brings us back to reviewing your system regularly. A planner you haven't checked in 10 days isn't really a working system anymore. It's just an outdated collection of things you once intended to do but never quite got around to.
A graveyard of good intentions. Weekly reviews are the maintenance keeping everything functional. Even a short 20-minute check-in at the end of the week, looking at what got done, what didn't, what carries forward, makes an enormous compounding difference when practiced consistently over time.
It creates genuine continuity. Continuity meaning things flow smoothly from one period to the next without important things falling through the cracks or getting completely forgotten during the chaos of daily life and constant demands.
I love thinking of it as leaving a handoff for your future self. That's what good schedule management really is. Making thoughtful decisions now so your future self, the one who's tired and under pressure, doesn't have to figure everything out from scratch. You're taking care of yourself before the difficulty arrives.
And that framing, taking care of your future self, makes the whole thing feel less like rigid self-discipline and more like genuine self-compassion. Self-compassion meaning treating yourself with the same kindness you'd naturally extend to a good friend who is struggling with something difficult.
Which connects to something really important. When people feel behind and overwhelmed, the inner voice that kicks in is often extremely harsh. I'm so disorganized, I never get anything done, what is wrong with me? That self-critical talk doesn't motivate, it just drains whatever energy you have remaining.
Whereas treating yourself with patience and genuine curiosity, okay, this week was hard. What got in the way and what could I try differently? Creates the psychological safety to try again, to experiment, to keep adjusting without simply giving up and abandoning everything entirely.
And there's real research behind this. Self-compassion is consistently associated with greater resilience and better long-term performance than harsh self-criticism. Resilience meaning the ability to recover and bounce back from difficulty. When you're kind to yourself after a setback, you recover faster and try again more willingly.
Bounce back. I love that phrase. And it captures something true about people who handle busy schedules well over the long term. They're not people who never struggle. They're people who recover relatively quickly, adjust without excessive drama, and keep moving forward with some real grace.
Grace and flexibility. Rigid systems crack under pressure. Flexible ones bend and recover. The goal is never building a perfect, unbreakable schedule. It's building habits and perspectives that help you return to center when things get disrupted. And things will always be disrupted, no matter how well you plan.
Always. And truly accepting that, not just knowing it intellectually, but actually accepting it, changes your entire relationship with your schedule. You stop expecting perfection and start expecting that you'll need to adapt regularly. Adjustment becomes part of the process rather than evidence of failure.
That shift from I failed because my plan fell apart to plans always need adjusting and that's completely normal is honestly one of the most liberating things that can happen in someone's relationship with their own time. It removes so much unnecessary suffering and wasted energy from the equation.
I want to ask something personal before we close. Is there a specific moment where your schedule genuinely got out of control? And what did you actually learn from going through that experience?
A few years ago, I took on far too many things simultaneously. A major work project, an evening course, and helping a close friend organize a large community event. For about 6 weeks, I was running on 5 hours of sleep, skipping meals, and becoming short-tempered with people I genuinely cared about. One evening, I sat in my car, completely unable to get out, just staring at the steering wheel.
That image is really striking, and I think many people listening will recognize something deeply familiar in that moment. Just hitting that invisible wall completely and not having anything left.
It was a wall, and what I truly learned, not just as an idea, but felt right through me, was that saying yes to everything isn't generosity. It's actually dishonesty. You're pretending to have capacity you simply don't have, and eventually everyone pays the price, especially you.
felt right through you, meaning understood at the deepest possible level, not just in your thinking, but in your whole experience. That kind of learning tends to stick in a way that simply reading about something never quite manages to replicate for anyone.
Because you feel the actual consequences, and it stops being theoretical. After that period, I made one commitment I've kept ever since. Before agreeing to anything significant, I give myself 24 hours. No immediate yes, just let me check and get back to you. That single pause has saved me more times than I can count.
That pause breaks the social pressure of the moment, that reflexive tendency to say yes because someone is standing right there looking at you expectantly. 24 hours gives you space to make a rational decision, rather than a purely emotional or social one made in the moment.
And most of the time when I return after that pause, it's either a genuine yes because I've thought it through and there really is space, or a clear no because in the calm light of the next day, without that in-the-moment pressure, I can see clearly it simply doesn't fit. Either way, it's a far better decision.
That might honestly be the single most actionable piece of advice from this entire conversation, the 24-hour pause. It's completely free, requires no app or system, just a habit of not answering important questions immediately on the spot.
And it signals something positive to people too. When you come back with a thoughtful yes, they know you genuinely considered it and can trust your commitment fully. When you say no, they can sense it's a considered, respectful decision, not a dismissal. Both outcomes actually strengthen the relationship rather than damaging it.
We've covered so much today. Prioritization, time blocking, urgent versus important, energy management, saying no, mental load, routines, boundaries, self-compassion, and that beautiful idea of leaving a clear handoff for your future self. This conversation could honestly go on for another hour.
Easily. But if someone listening takes just one idea from today and actually applies it this week, just one, this conversation has done its job. The biggest trap with any productivity content is consuming lots of interesting ideas and then doing absolutely nothing differently afterward. Knowledge that doesn't change behavior is really just entertainment.
Such a clean and honest way to put it. So to everyone listening, pick one thing. Maybe it's the 3-priority rule each morning. Maybe it's the 24-hour pause before committing. Maybe it's doing a brain dump tonight and simply noticing how your shoulders feel afterward. One thing, applied consistently, is worth more than 10 things you read about and immediately forgot.
Start where you are, with what you have, and make one small, deliberate change. Small changes practiced consistently compound into something genuinely significant. You don't need to transform your entire life this week. You just need to do one thing slightly more intentionally than you did last week. That is honestly and truly enough.
That is more than enough. Thank you so much, Jake, and thank you to everyone who spent time with us today. Your schedule is not your identity. Being endlessly busy doesn't make you important. Being intentional makes you effective. Being kind to yourself makes everything sustainable. And choosing how you spend your time, really choosing with honesty and awareness, is one of the most meaningful things you can do for the life you actually want to live.
And remember, done is better than perfect. Something is always better than nothing, and one good decision made today is a genuinely great place to start. Take care of yourselves.